back, mamas, to the Sure Parenting podcast. Today, I wanted to talk about one of the things that most parents find exceptionally frustrating, and that is bedtime. From birth, we are inundated with the message that a good baby sleeps through the night and a bad baby wakes. And I have a problem with this. It is a biological protective measure that our babies wake up, they connect with us, they reset their breathing, their heart rate, their temperature regulation based on our bodies. So the idea that they should be silent and away from us for 12 hours of a 24-hour day is kind of preposterous. But it starts then. It starts with this idea that if your baby wakes and needs you, if your parenting isn't 50% of your day, but instead 100% of your day, then you have a bad child. And I would love to dispel that myth overall. And I would love to help parents find ways to meet their kids' needs, to really see nighttime needs as valuable and important needs, and to make it a little bit easier so that you're not exhausted and stressed and overwhelmed, because parenting is hard enough. We don't need to add those other layers onto it if we can avoid it. With babies, really, my belief is meet the need. Some kids need to eat more, especially if they're nursing. Breast milk is incredibly beneficial to the brain and body development, and it digests quickly. You have a ready supply. Your supply is meant to be tapped roughly every 2 to 3, 4 hours. So when you do that, you maintain that homeostasis, that balance between you and your baby. Your baby's telling your body what you need to produce, your body's producing it. When you try to interfere and get these 12-hour stretches or 8-hour stretches of time away from your baby, your body isn't understanding what's happening. Biologically, that's not normal. And so that can cause some supply issues, it can cause mastitis, it can cause all kinds of things. It's also risky for baby because their blood sugar can drop so low because they aren't getting that input that they need to stay stable. Lots of stories of parents whose babies have stopped breathing for a little bit, and they are around and they notice and they, touch them, they move them, and they go, and they regulate their breathing. Babies are immature breathers. They're brand new at this, and they regulate by being by us. And so whether you are using a crib or not, you can use that crib in your own room so you are within eyesight of your baby. There are now safe co-sleeping guidelines even in the AAP recommendations, which I love because I do think that you can safely co-sleep under a myriad of circumstances. That's not what this is about. You can safely room share, especially. But you want to be within a close distance of your child. And what meeting those needs does is it develops a trust between you and that baby, that when they have a need, the need is met. When a baby is crying in the middle of the night and they're alone, they think they are in danger. But historically, babies were not left alone because they're defenseless. They can't do anything for themselves. They can't meet any of their own needs. So when they're crying and they're feeling this fear, when you meet that need quickly, they're reassured that the world is a safe place, that they can be attached to their caregiver, that their needs are going to be met, and that trust develops into independence and trust in their world as they age, which is awesome. When we ignore babies for a long period of time, we bathe their little brains in cortisol. And this isn't, I have to pee first and my kid cried for 2 minutes. This is, letting our kids scream. It's the extinction method. This is the far extreme of the cry it out. But it does cause a breakdown in trust. It does cause a breakdown in the natural communication between a mother and a baby. And it's not something that we recommend at Sure Parenting. We go through lots of other options so that moms and babies can both be taken care of, their needs met, and everybody be healthy at the same time. So as we get away from the baby stage, at some point, at some age, almost every parent has this light switch moment where they decide, now my child should just be able to fend for themselves all night. And it happens again, this idea that you have a good toddler if they never wake up at night, and you have a bad toddler if they do. And it's again damaging. These assumptions are based on our perspective and our expectations. And our kids don't have those. They don't have our perspective. They don't understand our expectations. They're not privy to the cultural ideals around sleep, and they have needs. Now, can we help them to meet their needs? Absolutely. Can we help them to need us less frequently? Sure. Is it okay to still co-sleep or room share with a toddler? Go for it. If that's working for your family and it's a safe situation and you know how to safely co-sleep, by all means, like, there's nothing wrong with that if that's working for you. I do know lots of families, though, where once this kid is rolling and kicking and stretching and doing all of these things, co-sleeping becomes very disruptive to the whole family. Nobody's actually sleeping well, and they want to do some sort of transition. So the first level that I like to do is floor bed. It's a Montessori idea. And it's funny because some people are very offended by this idea, and that's fine. If you don't like it, don't do it. But it's very simple. You put a mattress on the floor. By all means, put a sheet on the mattress. But it is inexpensive, it's easy, it is effective because you can still room share, but kiddo is in their own space. And you can help them to return to their space once they wake and they've had their need met, whatever that is. It helps them to develop their independence in a tiered way. So if, I started a floor bed at 7 months with my one kiddo who absolutely despised co-sleeping after a while. And it was essentially unsafe. He would push off of me as hard as he could and then fall off the bed. He did it twice. That was it. Was not working for us anymore. He was also the kiddo who every breath I took, he would wake up. So it just wasn't working for us anymore. So we wanted to do something different. So we started with a floor bed. And it was great because the most that he can fall from a floor bed is the 6 inches or whatever of the mattress. He can't get hurt. He's not at risk. The bed is against a wall, and then there's just floor. So it's not any kind of strangulation risk, or there's no headboard, there's no sideboards where they can get trapped or anything like that. So that worked really well, and I would lay with him and help him get to sleep there. And then I could extricate myself and he could remain sleeping, and I could still see him and hear him, and it worked out really, really well. Then transitioning him from that into a toddler bed was a piece of cake because it's the same mattress. You can just move it up. You also don't have to. You can keep a floor bed forever if you really wanted to. I know families whose their co-sleeping arrangement is to put a big king-size mattress on the floor. That's the safest for their family. But my kids did get a kick out of getting their own beds, and so they moved on to toddler beds, and that transition was really easy. The things that we did to help with sleep. So Xavier, as an infant, he struggled a lot because he had a lot of other things going on. He had colic, he had reflux, he had torticollis, he had a tongue and a lip tie, so he wasn't able to stimulate enough milk. He wasn't getting enough calories. He was hungry, so of course he was waking up excessively. And when I say that, I mean every 45 minutes. He wasn't even hitting an hour of sleep, which is not good for anybody. The only answer that the doctor could give us was just ignore him, let him cry, ignore him for 12 hours a night, lock the door, don't ignore him if he throws up. I mean, it was very harsh. It was very against every one of my mothering instincts, and I refused to do that, especially with a kiddo who wasn't getting enough milk as it was. To cut out half of his feedings just didn't make any sense. And it wasn't, I know lots of families who will say they've done cry it out, where their kiddo, rolled around and fussed for 2 minutes and then just settled into sleep. It's very different than what was being prescribed here, of literally letting a child just scream uncontrollably for up to 12 hours. He told me he did it with all of his kids, and eventually they gave in. And it's like, yeah, they do give up eventually. They give up on their needs being met. The need isn't gone, but they give up believing that you're going to meet the need, and that's tragic to me. So I wasn't going to do that. So we started reading the No Cry Sleep Solution. Love Elizabeth Pantley and her way of explaining sleep, and how some of the things we do with the best intentions can kind of confuse our kids. If you went to sleep in your bed and you just suddenly woke up naked on the kitchen floor, you'd be like freaking out. What just happened? And that's kind of that idea when we, do whatever it is to get them to sleep and then move them to a new position. Some kids do great. Some kids will wake up and panic because they're in a new place. My kids hated crib bars, so they panicked. So she was really great at helping us to change some of our expectations about sleep, understand our kids' perspectives about sleep, and come up with solutions that would help them and create an environment where sleep was welcoming for them versus the fight of sleep. Because anytime that we're going to try to establish this calming, soothing, everybody's going to go to sleep and it's going to be a nice, relaxing evening, but it starts with this huge battle. The battle part is releasing adrenaline and cortisol and all of those other hormones that are the opposite of sleep. So we're essentially doing the opposite of what would help our kids get to sleep by having this big battle. We eventually came to a group of multisensory triggers that really, really helped our kids and helped their brains get to a place where they could know what was coming, have their expectations in line, follow through on the bedtime routine, and get to sleep. So that was important. We did as many triggers as we could. So when I say trigger, that's anything that you can implement that will tell the brain, oh, it's time to start winding down. It's time to shut down the playing and the active and all of that and start moving into the slow down, refresh phase of life. So for sight, we have a lamp in our living room, and it has amber colored light bulbs in it. Blue light from screens, from TVs, from phones, iPads, even the white lights in your house, the blue wavelength tells the brain to stay awake. It inhibits your brain's ability to produce melatonin. You need about 60 to 90 minutes before sleep time to produce the melatonin that you need to get to sleep. That chemical that helps your brain kind of like wind down and prepare for the process of sleep. So we put these amber lights in because there's no blue light emitted there, and we put it on a timer. And when that went off, that signaled every other light in the house to be turned off. We're living by essentially candlelight, this dim orangey amber coloring. Everybody's eyes are adjusting. Everybody starts slowing down. We can only do things we can do by this light. So we could read, right next to it where you have to stay still, where you can't see the words. We could do a puzzle. We could, just cuddle, whatever it was. We could do some sort of slowing down activity. Then there would be a sound. So for us, over the years, the songs have changed, but when Xavier was little, it was a Daniel Tiger remake. Whatever bedtime song they did in Daniel Tiger, we tweaked it a little bit to our routine, and it was that simple. It's like 4 sentences. But we'd sing that song, and it was like, oh, there's that trigger. My brain just recognized that this is bedtime. Okay. One of the things we learned at the Kids Co-op in Las Vegas is that you don't need a bedtime song particularly, or a clean up song. You can pick any song. And if you play it every day and call it the clean up song, bedtime song, whatever, it becomes that. So you could pick just your favorite slower melody song and use that song. It doesn't have to be specific to sleeping in order to be a good bedtime song. So we play or sing the song, usually sing. And then smell. We really liked to do cedarwood essential oil diluted on the bottom of my kiddo's feet because he had night terrors, and it helped tremendously. Some people like to use oil, some people don't. You certainly don't have to. It's whatever you want. You could have anything be that smell that you trigger every night at the same time. Another thing to note, if you are doing some sort of night weaning or something like that, and maybe dad or grandma or somebody else is doing bedtime for you and kiddos are having a really hard time, have them wear a shirt that mom has been wearing. So for a lot of families, mom's shirts might be too small for that. So have mom wear dad's shirt, wear it all day, then take it off, give it back to dad. And when dad's wearing that shirt and rocking that toddler, they're breathing in mom's scent, so they don't feel quite so distressed. That can be very comforting. You don't want to put loose clothing in with a baby in a crib. Anything loose like that is a strangulation risk or a asphyxiation risk. But you can still rock with that shirt or whatever before you transition. You could also have mom put the, whatever, the zippity zip or whatever you use, if you use anything like that, under her shirt for while she's cooking dinner and kind of get her scent on it. You can do it either way, that way too. Touch. Some kids have a specific lovey or a specific blanket that's really fuzzy, and that feeling, that hygge feeling of coziness and just comfort washes over them at the feeling of touch. For some kids, it's the transition between jeans and whatever into PJs. Now they're comfy and they can relax. I know a lot of adults, that's a big mental trigger for bedtime for them. Touch could also be massage. You can do baby massage, you can do shoulder massage, foot massage, hand massage. Hands are surprisingly like a place we hold a lot of tension. It doesn't have to be long. It can just be a short little thing. Running your fingers down somebody's back stimulates really relaxing nerve endings. So anything like that could be a trigger. Taste. Obviously, toothpaste is going to be incorporated into most people's taste trigger. But before that, do you nurse? Do you make a tea and have that with your kids? One of our favorites is Relax Max, which we get from the homeopathic clinic called the Nevada Clinic in Vegas. But something like that has magnesium in it will help your body to produce the melatonin it needs. You also want to make sure you're getting enough calcium in order to use that magnesium to produce the melatonin. So we love Relax Max around here. The taste of it as well as the magnesium really impacts us. We also have done and continue to do magnesium chloride brine baths every night. You should put some in the water. There's liquid or flakes. It works a little bit better than Epsom salts. Epsom salts are really great for like sore muscles, but the magnesium chloride brine is really good for raising your overall body level of magnesium and a whole bunch of other things, anxiety and depression, like all kinds of things it's beneficial for. But it also is absorbed best transdermally, which means through the skin. So you want to either do it in a bath or a lotion. The spray bottles can be irritating on little people's skin, so I prefer it diluted either in the bath or in a lotion. And then you have routine, which kind of is encompassing all of this, but having the same sort of routine. And then we have some things that we do every day. We do reading. We just decided to incorporate some Qigong every day. Slow, big movements, lots of focus on breathing, that sort of thing. Yoga, you could do a couple yoga moves. You could do one a day. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just a way to signal to everybody that this is the end of our day. We're coming to a close and we're going into this wonderful, comfortable, soothing place of sleep. You want to know about your kids' sleep windows. You want to watch them. This is another thing that I first learned from Elizabeth Pantley, and then Lindsay Ransom. She is a wonderful sleep consultant who actually understands biological sleep needs of children, age-appropriate sleep needs of children, who's not going to tell you to just lock your kid in a room for 12 hours. She's fantastic. She's also a doula, and I'm pretty sure like almost a midwife as well. So she's kind of one of my favorite people ever. She also talks about the sleep window and how, and this happens to adults too. You'll notice this actually happens a lot. Adults will get really tired in the afternoon, but they have to push through. So their body and their brain gives them a dose of cortisol, but then they're ramped up and they have to wait for that cortisol to drop off again before they can get tired again. And for kids, the same thing happens if you miss their sleep window. So if your kid's sleep window is 7 p.m. and you're not putting them to bed until 11 and they're wired and crazy and they don't go to sleep until 1, well, they were tired hours beforehand. The sleep window can be tricky to figure out because it can be very subtle. When I paid attention to Xavier's sleep window, he would be playing and playing, but what would happen is he'd start like kind of swiping at his eyes a little bit. He might like stretch his arms out and kind of, you know how people when they're tired, they kind of stretch their arms out, their shoulders, their back. Just little things that I hadn't noticed because it was much longer until he would melt down and like the very clearly, obviously, like, oh, you are way overtired kind of thing. Those happen after you've missed the window. So before that is the really subtle things. And if you do miss it, then you just have to note when that is. So, everything went crazy, everything was terrible by 9 o'clock. Okay, so before 9 o'clock, it was actually time to go to bed. And you just kind of keep track of that so that you can work your way backwards and figure out what the best sleep window for your particular child is. I think that we hesitate to use an early bedtime sometimes. And for some families, it makes sense. If mom and dad are working until 3 in the morning, they're not going to have the same routine as somebody else. But your kiddos, if you're getting, 10 to 12 hours of sleep, that's a good thing. They're not adults yet, so they can't, and they shouldn't probably be staying up until 10, 11 o'clock at night. They should be getting to sleep 7, 8 o'clock. That seems to work for most families, most people with small children. So figuring that out, if you do need to change the timing, do it 15 minutes at a time in 15-minute increments. You can try up to 30, but too big of a jump will be a lot more fighting for you, whereas a small shift every day will make it really in 4 days, you're already an hour earlier. So that's not usually too bad. You want to be aware too of your own energy. Kids feed off of our energy. If you have the energy of, oh my God, get to sleep, I need to get away from you, even if you're not saying that, like, they can feel it. And it's hard not to. Like, when you're exhausted and you've been on all day, you really want them to go to sleep so that you can get away. If that is you, that's okay. I get it. Do something to distract yourself so that that feeling isn't pouring all over your bedtime. I started feeling that way, and my kid is incredibly perceptive, and he could pick up on it. If I wanted to leave, he would keep himself awake, almost in like a panicky state. Like, you're gonna leave, you're gonna leave, you're gonna leave. And I noticed this, and so I started reading on a Kindle Paperwhite while he was laying in bed getting to sleep. I was content. I was content to be sitting still. And he was able to feel that ease and peace and go to sleep. You want to remember that connection equals cooperation, defiance equals disconnection. So if your kiddo is fighting bedtime, try to see their perspective. They want to keep playing. They have lots of important work to do. The work of childhood is play, and sometimes we see play as insignificant or unimportant, but it's the most important thing in the world to them. That's how they develop and how they learn. It is their biological drive to play and explore. And so we are interceding in this, and that can be hard, especially if we're doing it very abruptly. After I moved, the boys were older, and I dropped a lot of these triggers and was just relying on, okay, it's bedtime, let's go. And I found a lot more fights, a lot more discord around bedtime. And it was disheartening because we had had such a good routine going in Vegas. And so it became very important for me to sit down and evaluate, where is this going wrong? What can I do to change it? What are my expectations? What are their expectations? What's my perspective and what's their perspective? And I was able to see that they needed more triggers again, and they needed a reason to see bedtime as some sort of positive, rather than just the end of all good things, which sounds dramatic, but I'm pretty sure that's how they were taking it at the time. So we made sure to incorporate reading again as part of bedtime. We read all day, so reading at bedtime was getting skipped somehow. And I don't know, just the busyness of life and moving and being super pregnant and really just wanting to move through the motions as quickly as possible. We took out what makes it so special for them, and that was a mistake. So we picked out my 5, almost 6-year-old's favorite chapter book, and the 4-year-old gets to pick another book, and we read, it happens to be Captain Underpants, so very short chapters. We read three chapters of that and the 4-year-old's book, whatever that is, and they love that. And so they get to do that once their teeth are brushed and they've flossed and, nose spray and mouth tape and all of those things. And because that's important to them and they really like that, it's a lot easier for them to transition from whatever they were playing with to this other enjoyable thing, rather than you just have to stop playing and do this series of unenjoyable things and tough. So that really helped us. The different triggers really help us. The Relax Max really helps. The Qigong seems to be helping as well. So doing little tiny micro routines that help the kids take our expectations and put those expectations on themselves rather than us just forcing them on them, has really been what changed bedtime around here. So that means that when they see the lights change, they expect that it's bedtime. Like, they have that expectation. Now, it's tricky right now because it's summer. It doesn't get dark here till 10:30. So we have blackout drapes in their rooms, which help at least with that. And we have Himalayan amber lamps. So they still have that coloring. It's just only in their room instead of the whole house. Once it's getting dark before 10:30 at night, because their bedtime is 7. Once it's getting dark by 7, then we can reestablish the amber light in the downstairs as well. But blackout curtains are fantastic for their room, and then those Himalayan lamps are that same amber color, which is fantastic for them. The routine for them has changed over the years, but the idea of having the routine and having each piece of it helps sink them deeper into relaxation and their own expectation of what's coming has been consistently effective for every year. Every year, despite the changes that have come up, those things have been useful and helpful. So if you are struggling with bedtime and sleep, try out some of these triggers. Try to sit down and look at your perspective, your expectations, their perspective, their expectations. Talk with your kids. My husband did this with Xavier, which is what led to the Qigong. It was, you seem more amped up than you were before we said it was bedtime. What can we do to help you calm your body down? What about Qigong? So it's something my husband does to relax at night. And my son loved that idea. He was like, yeah, let's do Qigong together. So it became another really special thing to him. And, we don't have to turn on a video and do a whole series. It was like, here's this one really great Qigong move that moves your whole body, and it's really slow, and you focus on your breathing, and we'll just do this over and over, 5 times until we're calm, or whatever it is. And because he chose it, it was even that much more special to him. So getting the kids involved if they're old enough. If you can only do 2 of these things, do them. Do what you can. I don't think there's anything wrong sitting with kids after they're in their beds, whether it's until they're completely asleep or until they're just kind of calm enough for you to leave. That when they were very young, it was holding their hand or touching them in some way. It transitioned to sitting by their bed but not touching them. Then it transitioned to sitting across the room, and until they went to sleep. And now it's just until everybody's calm, everything's really quiet, and you can kind of feel the difference in the air. And then we blow kisses and we leave, and they put themselves to sleep. So it gets better and easier. And it's worth the effort to put some thought into how your family does bedtime. If you need help, I will put a link to Lindsay Ransom's information. You can also join Empowering Moms to Uplift Kids on Facebook. It's a Facebook group. You can email me at sammy@sureparenting.com. You can schedule a free call at bit.ly/callsammy. And that will allow us to talk about your family's particular dynamics and what you can do to shift them so that you can have a peaceful, relaxing, enjoyable bedtime with your kids too. Thanks so much for listening, and have a good one. Bye.